Welcome to Mode Bespoke, I'm Atenas. For today's project we're going to be working on a summer crop top. Now this is a slightly more advanced video tutorial, so we will be moving at a quicker pace. But let's get started. So here is the flowery crop top that we're going to be making today. So it's got the neck ties up here at the top, and then it's got two straps here for the back, so it's the two little ties. That way you can adjust how tight you want the top part of the top to be, as well as the bottom part. So this bottom tie just adds a little bit more support here along the bust line. So let's take a look here at our design for today. So as you can see, I've made it by just crocheting together a whole lot of little flowers. But when you crochet all these little flowers together, you're going to notice that there's a lot of spacing in between them. So you are going to have to make a liner for this top. So for the liner, I used a Tunisian knit stitch. And I also used a really fine yarn. So that way it's just a liner that doesn't add any kind of added weight or anything to our design. And it just complements it really nicely. You can find the PDF pattern for this project on my website. I'll put a link in the description box below. So let's talk about the construction for this piece for just a minute. Now, it is made up of a bunch of little flowers. So I did crochet the flowers onto one another. So you start with a top flower and then you just start adding little flowers as you go. So I'm not going to give you a specific number of flowers since you are going to make this top to fit you. So that number may be different than the number that I need. Now, for the yarn that I used this Coboo yarn, which is a number 3 light yarn or a DK yarn. You can use any yarn you want. There is a little bit of weight to this top, so if you use a DK yarn, so anything that's number 3 or a lightweight yarn, you are going to have a little bit of weight. So you can change the yarn, use any size yarn you want. You can use a sport yarn, you can use a fingering yarn if you want to, but if you use this DK yarn, which is the size 3, you are going to need a 4.25 millimeter hook. So if you want to use a different yarn, you can go ahead, just leave me a comment and I'll help you figure out what size hook you'll need. So now let's get started here. I'm going to teach you how to make the flowers. So you're going to construct the flowers individually and attach them as you go. But to start the flower, you are going to need to begin with a magic circle. So wrap the yarn around your fingers and you're going to insert your hook behind that top loop and grab the yarn behind. So our magic circle is going to be the yarn that we wrapped around our finger. So we have to remove those fingers really slowly. So I just like to hold the yarn that I have on my hook with my index finger while I slowly remove my fingers from that loop. So now we're going to pinch that loop, so the circle, so that's the yarn that we wrapped around our fingers. We're going to pinch this, and that's so our yarn doesn't close up, so that circle doesn't close. And we're just going to chain 1. So using our working yarn and holding the magic circle below our fingers, we're going to yarn over 1 and pull that top loop through the bottom loop to chain 1. And that's going to make a nice little knot, and now we can release the magic circle, and there we go. So now we have to create a base for our petals. So to make this base, we're going to begin with a chain 4. So the chain that we just made does not count into this. So we're going to chain 1, 2, 3, and 4. So once we have a total of 4, we're going to single crochet into the magic circle. So we're going to crochet in the center of our circle. So insert your hook in the center of the circle, and then you're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. Once you have 2 loops on your hook, we're going to single crochet. So you're going to yarn over, and you're going to pull that loop through the 2 loops you already had on your hook. So yarn over and pull through 2, and we've single crocheted. So there is our chain loop, and that is the base for 1 petal. Now our flower has 5 petals, so we're going to have to repeat this 4 more times so we have a total of 5. So for the next one, we're going to chain 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to insert our hook into the circle, yarn over and pull up a loop. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 to close our single crochet. Chain 4, single crochet into the center of our circle. So we're going to yarn over and finish our stitch. Chain 4. We're going to insert our hook into the center of the circle and single crochet. So there we go. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we need 1 more petal. So let me chain 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll do my last single crochet. But I'm going to tighten up my circle just so that this isn't so open. There we go. Tighten it up a bit. Then I'll single crochet into the center of the circle. And there we go. So now our base is complete. So off of these chain loops, this is where we're going to construct the actual petal itself. So this is what it looks like. So you have all 5 petals. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And make sure you count them because I'd get a little distracted. And I know I missed a petal on a few of the flowers and I had to remake them. Anyway, so now we're going to work into the center of that chain loop. So you see this little space in there? That's where we're going to work. So for our next stitch, we're going to insert our hook into the center of the chain loop, yarn over and pull up a loop. And then we're just going to close our single crochet. So we made a single crochet, and we're going to follow this up with 2 half double crochets. So yarn over, insert your hook into that chain loop, yarn over, and pull up a loop. You're going to have 3 loops on your hook. So now all you do is yarn over, and you're going to pull that loop through all 3 of those loops on your hook. So yarn over and pull through all 3, and we're going to make 1 more half double crochet. So yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. We're going to follow this up with 2 double crochets. So now we're building the point of the petal. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to insert our hook into the chain loop, yarn over and pull up a loop. And now this time we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 of the loops on our hook. So yarn over and pull through 2. So there's 1, 2. And you're going to yarn over and pull through the remaining 2 loops on your hook. So yarn over and pull through 2. We're going to make 1 more double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. And now we yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so the topmost point in our flower is going to be a triple crochet. So this is a US triple crochet. So you're going to yarn over twice. And then you insert your hook into the chain loop, yarn over and pull up a loop. So just like with the double crochet, you're going to yarn over and you're going to pull through 2 loops. And then you're going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So there's 1, and there we go. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through the remaining 2 loops on our hook. And that was a triple crochet. So that is the top point of our flower. So now we have to repeat the steps we just did, but in reverse order. So we're going to begin with 2 double crochets, followed by 2 half double crochets, and then followed by a single crochet. So we begin the first of our 2 double crochets. So there's 1, and then we have to make a second double crochet. So I pull up a loop, here we go, and then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, we're going to follow this up with 2 half double crochets. So yarn over, insert a hook into the stitch, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So there's 1 half double crochet. We need to make a second one. And our last stitch in the petal is going to be a single crochet. And there we go. We have completed 1 petal. Now we have to repeat this 4 more times. So in each of these chain loops, we're going to do this again. So let's review the sequence of stitches again so that you can complete your flower. So you use 1 single crochet, 2 half double crochets, 2 double crochets, 1 triple crochet, 2 double crochets, 2 half double crochets, and 1 single crochet. So complete the 4 remaining petals of your flower, and when you finish, your flower should look like this. Now we're going to do 1 last stitch, and this is going to be a slip stitch along the bottom stitches. So one of the stitches here along the base of the flower. So just insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, And then to slip stitch, you're going to pull this top loop through the bottom loop. So there you go. And now your flower is ready. So now just cut your yarn, make sure you leave a nice long tail, remove your hook and pull the rest of your yarn out of that loop. And then to tighten the flower, find the yarn, so find this thread that is attached to that magic circle, so the yarn that's in the center of the stitch. And you're just going to pull on it. So pull on it nice and tight, and that'll tighten up the center of your flower. So now just move around your petals the way you want them to look. And there you go. Your first little flower is complete. So now for the rest of our design, we're going to have to be adding flowers. So the flower we just made is going to be the topmost flower of our top. We're going to start adding flowers, and we're going to start adding them in rows just to make it a lot cleaner and a lot easier to see. So for this next part, we have the flower we just made, and you're going to need a second flower. Now this flower is going to be your guide. So we're going to lay this flower down right next to the first one. Since we're going to be crocheting these flowers individually, this guide is going to help tell you where it is that your flowers need to be attached. So when you lay them together, you're going to see where the petals touch. You're going to know that that stitch is the one you're going to need to attach your flowers in. So I'm going to make a third flower in just a different color yarn just to show you how to attach them and where it'll make it easier to see. So if we take a look at our flower and our guide, we're going to see that we need 4 petals, and on the 5th petal, we're going to have to attach the flowers. So let me start working on those 4 petals, and then I'll show you how to attach them. So I've completed 4 of the 5 petals of my yellow flower. So here's the little 5th petal base. And if you remember, when we placed our guide, we noticed that we had to attach our petals at the top of that 5th petal and then to the flower right above it. So on that topmost stitch is where we're going to attach our flower. So to get there, we're going to begin the petal. So we're going to start with our single crochet and then do our 2 half double crochets and then complete the 2 double crochets. So there's 1, there we go, and then 2. And then we're also going to work the triple crochet because we're attaching the flower at the top of that petal. So work the triple crochet, and then we're going to attach it here right after we finish this stitch. So there we go. So we've completed half of that 5th petal. So let's grab the flower we want to attach our little yellow flower to. And if you look here, we're going to attach that to that triple crochet. So look for the triple crochet, which is the tip of the petal. You're going to insert your hook into the stitch that you want to attach our flower to. So here it is again. Make sure you grab both of the threads that make up the stitch. And we're going to yarn over and pull through all of those loops. So all of the loops you had on your hook. And now your flowers are connected. So now they're attached. And now you can complete the rest of the petal. So let me move all of this over a little bit. And then to finish our petal, so we left off at the triple crochet. So we're going to complete 2 double crochets. And then we're going to make 2 half double crochets. And then finally, we're going to finish with a single crochet. And now just a slip stitch here at that final stitch. And then there you go. So we've attached 2 of our flowers. Now I can tighten on my flower by just pulling on that center pull thread. There you go. Let's arrange the flower so it looks nice and presentable. And there we go. So now we've attached 1 petal. So this is where your guide is going to come in handy now, because we have to attach yet another petal. So you're going to grab your guide and you're going to place it where you want to attach the other flowers. But let me get this yarn out of the way so that it's easier to see. There we go. So grab your guide and make sure you leave that flower unattached, so that once you place your guide, you're going to see that you have the next flower, you have to attach it at 2 different points. So you're going to complete 3 petals, and on petal number 4, you're going to attach it to the flower we just attached, so my yellow flower. And then petal number 5, you're going to attach it to the top flower. But this is how you're going to continue adding flowers to your top. So you're going to add one more row of flowers. So you're going to have either 3 or 4 flowers right along here. And let me show you with this top. So you're going to work a total of 3 rows. So you have 3 rows to complete the top on one side, and then you're going to repeat everything you just did for the second triangle. So these top parts, I'm calling them triangles. So if you see that on the written pattern, that's what I'm talking about. So once you complete both of your triangles, try them on. So pin them onto your shirt. So of course it's not going to cover the bust completely, but it's going to give you a guide to see whether or not you need to add a 4th row to each of your triangles. Once you've determined that your triangles fit, then you're going to add all of the bottom part. So try them on. Once the 2 triangles connect, then you know you can start making lines that go across the entire bottom part of your top. And then at that point, all you're doing is just adding length. So this is why I couldn't give you a specific number of flowers, because it just depends on your bust size and how long you want this crop top to be. But once you have finished the length that you want, you can add the little centers of the flowers. And once you're through with all of the centers, we're going to work on the liner. So just grab any colored yarn that you want for the center of your flower. You're going to cut a fairly decent sized length for it, thread it through your yarn needle, and then you're going to make a knot at one end, so using only one of the threads. There's my flower. Alright, so I'm looking at the front of the flower. We're going to insert our needle through the back. So let me turn my flower around, insert it here through the very back. There we go. And go all the way to the front. So just pull your needle all the way through, and there we go. So that way your little knot's in the back. So now, to make a French knot, which is what we're going to be using for the center, you're going to need to have your needle as close as you can to your work. So holding it closely to your work, you're going to wrap the yarn around your needle about 6 times. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm off camera. And then I've got space right here, so 6. So anywhere between 5 to 6 times, whatever you can wrap around your needle. Just try to be consistent with all of your flowers. So now you're going to make just a superficial stitch here, so don't go all the way through your flower. Just grab some of the threads here and just stay in the front part of the flower. So you're going to stitch right here and hold all of those loops just under your thumb. And then you're slowly going to pull the needle through the stitch. So make sure this doesn't get too tangled, but pull through really, really slowly until you're left with a loop at the end. So here it is. So there's our little loop. You're going to insert your needle into that loop. So that's why you have to pull the needle through really slowly. So insert your needle into that loop, and then stitch towards the back of the flower. So insert your needle in the center of the flower and all the way through to the back, and then just finish your stitch. And for this part, try to pull your needle slowly again so that you don't get a little knot like I did right there. So let me try to untangle it. All right. But as you pull it slowly, you will create a nice little French knot in the center of your flower. So just repeat this with all of your flowers and then move on to the liner. So for this liner, I'm just going to use a thicker yarn to show you the stitch, but the yarn I used for the liner that you saw on the top at the beginning of the video is a very thin yarn. So this is a fingering yarn. That is a size 1 fingering yarn, and that is because we want a very thin liner. So we're going to need to measure the width of your crop top. So you're going to make a chain in the width that you need for your top. So for this, you're going to need 2 hooks. So I'm using this really large hook because I'm using a bigger yarn. But if you're going to be using the fingering yarn, you're going to need a 2mm hook and a 3mm hook. So using the 2mm hook, or the smaller of your 2 hooks, make a slip knot. And then you're going to chain an odd number of stitches. So it's a little easier to work with an odd number of stitches, but really you can just crochet however many stitches you want. But make a length that is the width of your crop top. So just make a chain in, count an odd number of stitches and then just lay it flat against your shirt to measure it. So here's my chain. Just hold it up against your shirt, make sure that it is the width that you need, and once you have chained the width you need, you're going to switch to your larger hook. So in my case, I'm working with a 7mm hook right here, but for the fingering yarn, you're going to need a 3mm hook. So switch to your 3mm Tunisian hook. So make sure it is a Tunisian hook. If not, get the longest crochet hook you have that is a 3mm and place a little rubber band at the end of it. But let's switch to our hook and we're going to cast on a foundation row. So to begin, we're going to insert our hook into the second stitch of our chain. So it's that second stitch from your hook. So insert your hook there, and then you're going to yarn over and you're going to pull up a loop. You're going to leave this loop on your hook and you're going to repeat in the next stitch. So insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. We repeat, insert the hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. And you're going to repeat this in all of the stitches of the chain. So I'll finish working the foundation row and the rest of the stitching is all going to be in Tunisian knit stitch. Now I'm not going to show you how to do the knit stitch in this tutorial because I've already covered it in the Tunisian 101 tutorial. So if you don't know what the knit stitch is, go check out that video tutorial. It is in the Tunisian playlist, so go check that out. I'm going to finish this foundation row with you and then we'll continue the rest of the pattern. So once you've finished casting on all of the stitches of your chain, you're going to work what is called a return pass. So for the return pass, we're just going to work, it's a standard, just regular Tunisian crochet return pass, and you're going to work one yarn over and pull through one loop from your hook. So pull one loop off of the hook. And now for the remaining loops that are on your hook, you're going to yarn over and you're going to pull through two. So yarn over, pull through one loop, and then two loops, and then for the rest of the row you just yarn over and pull through two loops until you're left with just the one loop on your hook. So what you want to make is a fabric that measures the width of your crop top without including the triangles. So the triangle part we're going to work on together, but make a fabric that measures that rectangular part of the crop top. So here is my little sample fabric, and this would have been the width or the size that I wanted for that rectangular part of, my really tiny crop top. What you're going to do is you're going to fold that fabric in half, like so, and then you're going to need to place a stitch marker or a safety pin, something, right in that center stitch. So that's going to tell us where the center of our crop top is, and then just to be sure, you can go through and count your stitching. So you should have an even number of stitches, so the same on this side as on this side, and you might be in the middle of a stitch. If you don't, that's okay. Just make sure that your stitch marker is somewhere in the center. So now we're going to have to work a series of decreases in order to create those triangles. So we're going to work in that second vertical stitch from our hook. So remember that when we're working on the Tunisian one, always skip that very first one. So beginning on that second vertical stitch, we're going to Tunisian simple stitch. So insert your hook behind that top loop or the top leg, whatever you want to call it. So behind just that top loop of the stitch, and then you're going to knit stitch in that second stitch. So go through both of those stitches, yarn over, and cast on one loop. Now knit stitch in the rest of the stitches until you are left with two stitches right before that stitch marker. So here we are, two stitches right before our stitch marker. So there we go, there are two vertical stitches. Here's our stitch marker over here. And we're going to decrease again. So we're going to do the same thing that we did at the very beginning of the row. So you're going to Tunisian simple stitch in that first stitch. And you're going to knit stitch in the stitch right after that. So just go through both of those, yarn over, and pull up a loop. And there we go, we've cast on all of our stitches. So that final stitch of the row, we're just going to cast it on using that chain space. So insert your hook into that chain space and cast on. If you have a stitch instead of a chain space, then just cast on into that stitch. And then work a return pass. And this is a regular return pass. Once you've completed your return pass, we have to begin another row with the decreases to create that triangular shape. So just to review that decrease, we're going to work beginning in that second vertical stitch from the row. So you're going to Tunisian simple stitch in that first stitch, and then you're going to directly insert your hook into the next stitch as a knit stitch, and then just yarn over and pull through both of those stitches. and then knit stitch in all of the remaining stitches until you have 2 stitches left. So you're going to have 2 vertical stitches left at the end of the row. So let me cast these on really quickly and get to the end. And then see we have 2 vertical stitches, and then we're left with that final stitch of the row as well. So once you are here, you're going to decrease again. So Tunisian simple stitch and immediately knit stitch in that next stitch. And then just yarn over and pull up a loop. And then don't forget to cast on into that final stitch of the row. And there we go, we've cast on again. And then just work a return pass. So repeat this same decrease pattern until your fabric has reached a nice little triangle and it is the same size as your top. So make sure that it doesn't poke above the flowers. Once you've done that, we need to work a single crochet bind off. So beginning on that second vertical stitch, you're going to insert your hook into the stitch like you would a knit stitch, yarn over, and you're going to pull up a loop. When you have 2 loops on your hook, you're going to single crochet. So you're going to yarn over and pull through both of those loops. There you go. And then we repeat that in the second stitch. So insert your hook into the stitch like you would a knit stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then you single crochet. So yarn over and pull through 2. You're going to repeat this in the remaining vertical stitches of the row. You're also going to make a single crochet in that final stitch. So this one right here. So don't forget that stitch. So we're going to single crochet into that stitch as well. And then I like to end my row with a chain 1 just to make a little knot here at the end. Tighten that up and cut a nice long tail end of yarn. You're going to weave that in later. Pull your hook out, pull your yarn out, and there you go. There's your first little triangle. You're going to repeat what we just did in that second triangle. So right along this side. So now if your stitch marker was in that chain space, you're going to begin in the chain space. If your stitch marker ended up in a stitch, you're going to begin on a stitch. So wherever your stitch marker is, insert your hook, and you're going to pull up a loop. So wrap your yarn around your hook. Make sure you leave a really long tail end of yarn for this so that you can tighten it up a little bit later, because that first stitch is going to loosen up a lot as you work. You can also just tie the tail end of yarn onto your stitch marker and then begin to work. That'll also help a little bit. But you're going to repeat what we just did. So cast on all of your knit stitches and then remember to start that first row with a decrease. Once you finish both of the little triangles, weave in all of your ends and sew the liner onto your top. And now we're just going to move on to these little ties. Now the ties are really, really easy, but I do have a total of 6 ties. We have 4 in the back, so these are a little bit wider, and then we have the ones for the neck. So the ones at the back is going to be made up of a chain of 6 stitches. The ones that we did for the neck, we're going to chain 4 stitches. So you're going to work in the same way, it's just the number of chains at the beginning that's going to be different. The length of these is also going to be the same. So the neck ties are the same length as the back ties. And this is so that you can tie a bow on, like around the back of your neck and on your back as well. So let's begin this with a slip knot. So here we go. And we're going to chain 6. So this is for the back straps. You're going to need 4 of these, 4 little back ties. So chain 6. So it's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And this is just made up of a series of single crochets. So it's really, really simple. All you just repeat the same row over and over. So let's start here. Beginning on that second stitch from your hook, you're going to insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. When you have 2 loops left on your hook, you're going to single crochet. So yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So we already covered a single crochet. So at this point, I'm just going to work through these stitches really quickly here, just to get you working on the ties for your top. So single crochet in every stitch of the row. And then the second row is the one you're going to repeat every time. So once you have your first row ready to go, you're going to chain 1, turn your work around, and beginning on that first stitch of the row, you're going to begin to single crochet. So here's that first stitch. I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then finish my single crochet. And that's it. You just single crochet in the remaining stitches, but remember that to begin a row, you're going to chain 1, turn your work around and begin in that first stitch of the row. That way your little tie is the same width all the way across. So now to determine the length of these ties, because all 6 of the ties are going to be the same length, you are going to need to count the number of rows on this first one so that you make all the rest of the ties will all match. So make a length that is the same length as your measurement on the chest. So take your chest measurement right below the bust. Either that or just make a nice long length and then just measure it up against yourself. That will give you enough length so that you can tie your little ties in a bow behind your back and then the ones behind your neck as well. So count the number of rows. You're going to repeat this for the remaining 3 back ties, and then you're going to repeat that same number of rows for the necktie. Now, the necktie is not as wide as these back ties. So instead of that chain 6, you're going to chain 4. So let me untie these real quick. So you're going to begin with a chain 4, and you're going to do the exact same process we just did to work on these back ties. So just single crochet in however many rows you needed for the back tie. And then all that's left is just to sew these ties on. So these little back ties, I worked on that rectangular part of the top. So I did one at the top and then one at the bottom on either side. And then the ones around the neck, I just sewed them on to the top flower. But that's it. You can check out the written pattern for this project on my website, and I'm going to leave the link down in the description box below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, just leave them down in the comment section below. To see more of my work, you can follow me on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I will see you all again in the next video.